Hello, hello, hello. Hopefully everybody can hear me all okay. If I could just get a couple of messages down in the chat before I begin a proper introduction, that would be absolutely awesome. As I've been going through the chat already, and I've seen some couple of interesting comments regarding some of the action that has already gone down with some of the upgrades that have been released. Hello, sound is okay. Sound is all good. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Well, my name is Alex from the channel Alex Does F1 Stuff. And I'll be your commentator for this hour of the FP3 action here at Spain, at the Circuit Barcelona de Catalunya. And I'm also joined by a fellow friend as well. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. I am Ferral. You all know me from lots of other free practice sessions we have had so far. And yeah, we're basically here to see if free practice is a little easier and more action-packed to comment on if we do a tandem job here.
Well, hopefully. Is it going to be a bit more action-packed, do we think, than FP1 and FP2? Because not too much happened in those. I know you commentated on those sessions yesterday, if much actually happened.
It was kind of treacherous, I gotta say, but unfortunately, I don't think there is much more happening, as Barcelona is a very well-known test track already, and there is already a lot of data in, and none of the teams, I think, are really gonna risk anything in this third session. But we'll have an all-out in qualifying later today.
I feel we're definitely going to get a couple of qualifying simulations in, so we should see a few glimpses of pace from these new cars that people have got. And we've already had a first donation from Supermax and the Minister of Defence, a regular viewer of our live streams here. Good morning or evening, top of the morning to you, as I believe you're down in Australia. It's currently middle of the afternoon for me, slap bang 12 o'clock in the afternoon, bang on lunchtime here in the UK. Hope you're having a good day and ready for some FP3 action, as the session should be starting in just over a minute's time. But if you do have any questions, please do let us know in the chat, and we will do our best to answer them, sort of chopping and changing between the two of us. And then whenever any action gets underway, hopefully we'll see some decent stuff happen in this FP3 session.
Yeah, I will just cut you off as soon as we see Mick Schumacher go for pole.
Hopefully, that would be pretty cool if Haas actually managed to turn this around with no upgrades and everybody else's upgrades are all terrible, and then Haas suddenly end up at the front. That would be incredible.
Yeah, I mean, throughout practice, it hasn't looked too bad for Haas. Like, they haven't really lost any pace on what they had before, so I guess the upgrades the others brought are either not really dialed in yet or are not the major step forward the teams were hoping for.
I can imagine that is the case, as updates they give off a synonymous view of the car getting better, but that doesn't always happen. An update can make the car worse, and it's usually a new base for teams to work from, especially teams like Mercedes having a significant upgrade like they've got to their new floor. It's almost like a new base to now work from, to improve and hopefully find a little bit more pace in the car to unlock some of that potential that has been hidden because of their bouncing problems that they've had. And then same goes for Ferrari and Red Bull, because they've brought some new wings. McLaren, they've brought pretty much a brand new car, as have Aston Martin. Aston Martin, there's a couple of controversies around the Aston Martin at the minute.
Yeah, but as we are speaking of floors, I think Norris really botched it for his team, as he was ruining. Yeah, he has broken the updated floor they brought. So
he has, yeah. It also broke the survival cell. It broke the physical survival cell of the car as well. So they had to break the curfew last night to get that replaced. So he's actually got a different chassis for this session.
Ooh,
Not quite. Yeah, not sure how he actually managed to break it so badly. Yeah, there was damage to the survival cell for the McLaren, along with Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari as well.
Yeah.
So let's have a look at some of these comments that people have got. Who will crash at first, or who is going to crash first this weekend? Did we actually have any Latifi? Did we actually have any incidents in FP1 or FP2? I've not actually seen any of the highlights.
Absolutely not. You also have not missed anything with the highlights, as I think the longest highlight video I've seen was 3 minutes.
Perfect. Okay, well, that's good. I won't hastily go and rewatch those. As I've got a green light, as we've got Lando Norris coming out of the pit lane for the start of this FP3 session here. Let's have a look. Who is going to get pole? Can Sebastian Vettel get pole position? Oh, I'm not sure. I am not sure. As my current timer is at 59 minutes exactly. 59 minutes. So
That
can
is
Sebastian Vettel get
perfect,
pole?
as we see like Norris and Ricciardo really eager to get out there, but they have a lot of things to take in here. They have missed a lot of valuable practice time, basically, with that wrecked floor.
And definitely with this new update as well to try and understand this car. They need as much track time as they can, so losing some of that is not ideal. Certainly not.
Absolutely. But yeah, it seems like the teams aren't as eager to get out there as they were yesterday, as we
No,
have
we've only got
only exactly
four out there for the time being.
5 now. As
I'm sure it'll pick up. I'm sure it'll pick up as we go through. When the track gets a bit rubbered in, the temperature goes up, the grip levels go up. We'll start to see some quick laps coming through. As what can
Yeah,
George Russell do? We're looking at George Russell currently. What can he actually do in his new Mercedes? Can he dial in some performance, move up from that P2 that he was in FP2? He was only a tenth behind, I think, the Ferrari of Leclerc at the end of yesterday's session. So I think, was he held up? I heard one of the Mercedes was held up. I think that was Hamilton, though, with Alonso.
no,
And Alonso,
that was actually Russell who
was it
almost
Russell?
who almost
Okay.
crashed in the back of who was it? Vips, I think. Who
Okay. Oh yeah, Vips
did
was
not quite
in.
get off the racing line quick enough in FP1.
Mhm,
But that was the absolute highlight of all the happenings there. Apart
mhm.
from that, it was just cars going around the track.
As we're currently on board with Lando Norris now, I do like this nose cam that we've got, as you get a proper sense of the speed
Yes.
as we're going around. So we'll see what representative lap, if this will even be a representative lap from Lando Norris, as we're sort of expecting times to be in the high 118s, low 119s for the end of today. So if it's anything in the 120s, then it's not a super quick lap. But he's currently out on the mediums at the minute, so
I think with the 120, he's not doing too bad on his only second lap without any real tire temperature or reason to push yet, though.
Exactly. So I would say they might want to get some race runs in. So just a couple of longer runs on these medium tires, as I'd imagine that's going to be the race tire for pretty much everybody. No one's really going to want to run the soft much at all for the race. It will just get minced for
Yeah,
any of the distance.
I would actually love to see some on-track action to through that 14, 15 chicane, as we
I
see a smoked up Pierre Gasly.
Oh, we do
Ooh,
indeed. Oh, that
yeah,
yeah. In the garage as well. Gasly has
yes.
some issues. The car is definitely smoking there for Pierre Gasly inside the garage. Haven't heard anything more than that, so I shall do some refreshes of Twitter to see if we've got any news for them. I'd imagine that was on startup. There
Yeah,
was
oh, the
indeed on
irony,
startup.
as I just got the push notification of the AlphaTauri team with ready for one last practice, we are. Well, you are certainly
Nope,
not.
you are certainly not anymore. As we've got some issues for Pierre Gasly. Pierre Gasly's car is now smoking as he was coming out of the exit on engine startup. Not something
Yes.
we see very often. I'm not sure if you remember back in 2018, the Ferraris used to burn oil, and whenever they would start up, a huge plume of
Oh,
smoke
yeah,
would
yeah,
always
yeah.
come
That
out of the back
was.
whenever any Ferrari engine would start. But I think this is something completely different. It's definitely going to be a
Probably.
mechanical issue for Pierre Gasly. And if it's engine related, which it looks like it definitely was, I would not expect to see him back out in this session.
Yeah, I would
And it
just if I would have to take a guess by the color of the smoke, I would say it is some hydraulics
Yes,
thing
because
there.
it was a whitish color. It wasn't blue or
Exactly.
anything like that. So it should. I don't think he'll be out in practice 3, but potentially it will be fixed in time for practice or for qualifying, even in 3 hours time now, 2.5 hours time.
Yeah, well, depending on the damage that is done, basically it would just be Maybe a gasket replacement and tightening down some bolts, and that could already resolve the issue, depending on what it was. Refill fluids, of course.
Hopefully, it doesn't result in an engine change for them, because at race number 6, you don't really want to be replacing an engine. They need to do a couple more.
Absolutely
They
not.
need to do a couple more races than that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, we've just had a comment here from someone. I have muted the Sky F1 to listen to the racing statistics presenters. That was a bit of a tongue twister there for myself. Thank you very much for that. I really appreciate
Yeah,
that.
that's really honoring for us. As I have to be honest, I mostly have the racing statistics channel muted, but I do also have the race commentary muted, as I just like to enjoy it for myself, basically.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's always nice to hear. Alfa Romeo, there, as it looks, has a lot of
Flovis paint on the rear
yeah,
wing there.
Flovis, exactly.
That's actually a rather high angled rear wing that they've got, that's slightly detached from the end plates. It looks interesting.
Yeah.
It's an interesting. Alpine have also got a similar design to that. So just getting some idea of where the air is flowing, see if it will correlate to what they've got in the tunnel. But Bottas at the moment, fastest, but only 2 lap times on the board. We've got Bottas at 1:21.326, and then Norris 2.3 seconds behind that. I believe both drivers are on the mediums, but I'm not 100% sure.
Bottas is straight to the soft tire, as far as I've seen that. So
Oh,
as
yep.
he
Bottas
set
on the
out
softs, yep.
everything of free practice 2 yesterday with a power unit issue, I think he is really going for those qualifying laps now.
Yeah, hopefully we start to see the times tumble, as we're currently on board with Mick Schumacher. Is he going to run over another bollard in his career? He's actually run over 2 of the bollards so far.
Well,
He ran over one in Bahrain last year, I think,
he got.
and he collected one yesterday.
I want my money now, because I did predict Mick Schumacher getting some sort of pole.
I think you can cash that out. I think you can
Yeah.
cash that one out.
I will absolutely.
Oh, so we've got someone here saying, I think that Red Bull is going to take the pole position, but this weekend Ferrari has a lot of engine power. Now, I personally don't quite believe that Ferrari does have a lot of engine power, as if we look at the speed trap data, it's actually Mercedes, and more specifically George Russell, that was topping a lot of the mini sector times on the main straight, with Red Bull being slightly quicker in the corners. So the 2 fastest teams as of yesterday, looking at the mini sector analysis, was Mercedes on the straights and Red Bull in the corners. So Ferrari potentially may have slipped a little bit, or they're just hiding some of their pace, or trying to unlock and dial in their new car updates for the time being. Mercedes is going to take pole position, we've got people predicting. Could they actually take their first pole position of the year, their longest run without a pole position, and their longest run without a race victory in the turbo hybrid era, which is bonkers?
That is very hard to tell, as I do know, I only know Mercedes as a strong team and as a dominant team, which is throughout this whole season, throughout practice, Mercedes tended to look very quick, very self-secured, and like just strong out there. But so far, they just kind of weren't able to deliver during qualifying and racing sessions.
Yeah, they managed to hit the ground running, and then it just seemed everyone else improved throughout the weekend, whereas they sort of plateaued and still struggled to dial in the car, but they were able to hit the ground running when they got to the weekend, or like
Yes,
on the practice
exactly.
sessions.
So I think a pole for Mercedes it's definitely there. Like it is not too far fetched. Like I think we will see a Mercedes pole before we will see a Haas pole, unfortunately. But so far it's just like this the pattern throughout the season shows that their strong performance they had throughout practice sessions was not carried over into the sessions where it really counted for them.
Let's have a look at some more of these questions. Sorry, I sort of zoned out there. I was just looking through some of the questions.
Yeah, no,
Not
me too. I
100%
was
sure. not
I was
100% sure that the quali would be a lot more exciting to watch than the race. So people are thinking that qualifying could be the most entertaining portion of this weekend, as I feel it's definitely going to be like that next weekend when we go to Monaco, that the qualifying is going to be the more interesting bit than the race. I would like to think though with these new cars that we could see as we watch one of the AlphaTauris, that's Yuki Tsunoda bouncing over the final chicane, taking up a massive amount of air there. And that's some extreme bouncing that he's got going on.
That AlphaTauri does look like a stable flyer. I was actually, when I saw the slow motion, I was actually astonished that he did not bin that.
Yeah,
But
definitely some good car control from Tsunoda there to not spin on landing.
absolutely. But I'm actually quite curious now with the new generation of cars. Yeah, that 14, 15 chicane, who was just always this kind of thing that made the track way worse. And nobody
Agreed.
really
It
liked it.
definitely does.
The thing is, it only makes it worse because you could get in a wheel-to-wheel battle, and whenever you got out of the chicane, whoever car led was leading by a second or two, which could not be made up with the whole DRS zone following it.
Mm-hmm.
But now with the new generation of cars and the ability to follow much closer, we might actually see a chance that this chicane will not be as bad anymore. As I don't think we will see the chicane vanish anytime soon, as this turn 16 into the straight just has a very small runoff area, basically.
That's
where
true.
it's
They'd be
just
carrying much more speed into it, wouldn't they?
exactly
The
the
chicane
chicane
slows them
is
down.
there for safety reasons, so we will not see that chicane gone by any means necessary. It's there to stay as in that corner earlier in past seasons.
We've
There
got an
were
issue for the Haas. They've got some flapping bits on the rear brake duct on the rear right. I'm not sure which Haas this is. Schumacher.
Schumacher, yes, it is Schumacher, and it also looks like a small fire in that
And a
right
small
there.
fire as well. It looks like his
That's
car's
not a small
smoking.
fire anymore, as he is coming into the pits. That's as he was not even able to
Yeah,
brake the car.
the brakes are on fire. His rear brakes are on fire for Mick Schumacher. So we've had a couple of mechanical issues here. So we've had Pierre Gasly's car catch fire, or well, internally catch fire at least, before he even got out of the garage on engine startup. And now we've had Mick Schumacher having a rear right brake failure, which we've actually seen the Williams have quite a lot of this year. They had that one in testing and then one a couple of races ago. So as
Yeah,
we're watching a bit
where
of
Albon's
slow-mo,
whole tire just exploded on the track.
it looks like the brake just failed completely and has caught fire. Whether the whether the actual cake tin has exploded on the inside or not, so that could be what some of the flapping debris is. And then it just catches fire and he has no stopping ability. Oh, a mechanic fell
Probably.
over as well.
Yeah. That was intense, as it looks like it's still kind of spewing not flames anymore, but there is definitely some sort of small explosion things going in there, as we see clouds shooting out of the tires. So I guess that will be a bigger repair job. While
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a big repair job. But thankfully, he was able to get into the pits though and not stop on the track, so he didn't have any yellow flag or safety car incidents or virtual safety car incidents for practice. Although it would have probably gone to a red flag actually if he'd have stopped on track.
yeah,
So we've currently only got 5 lap times set at the moment, and they're not super quick. We've got Valtteri Bottas leading the way on the softs at 1:21.3. Then Kevin Magnussen, 1.5 seconds back from that on the mediums. Lando Norris, P3, 1.9 seconds back from Bottas on the mediums as well. Then Yuki Tsunoda after bouncing over the final chicane on the hards. And then Mick Schumacher, whose brakes have now just caught fire in the pits, 4.1 seconds back from Valtteri Bottas. So we haven't really had many representative lap times set as of yet, as Fernando Alonso just comes over the line, slotting into P2, a 1:21.7. Was that, I think I saw? 1:21.7?
for Max in with another donation for that poor mechanic. Thank you for that.
Yeah, we'll have to make sure to send it the mechanic's way there. Thank you.
We got to find out who that is. But yeah, I think it is okay if, as a mechanic with a brake on fire, you are kind of falling over. Compared to that Marshall in where was it? The Marshall who just fell over on live TV.
Oh,
What?
he was. It was in
Epic
Australia.
fail.
He was
Oh
collecting some
yeah,
debris and running back to his Marshall post, and he falls over
exactly.
after.
Yeah,
Yeah, I remember that
that
during the red flag
that is
period.
something you don't want to be shown on television internationally.
So we've got a lot of talk in the chat about the upgrades at the moment and how teams are pushing the regulations. As we've obviously got some cheating allegations going on here in the chat, as we always do with some teams. But all teams push the regulations to the absolute limit in order to gain an advantage, and they exploit all of the grey areas that are possible. And that is very true. That's the whole purpose of these rules. Oh, that break is completely ruined actually, as we've got a
Yeah,
nice shot.
that's
That's
that
yeah,
doesn't
that's a
look like
ruined
the car
break.
is going out all too fast.
Nope. No, I would say that car is now done for the day after just
Absolutely.
17 minutes of practice 3 action there for the Haas, unfortunately. That's going to be another big
Already
repair job
over.
for Haas.
Well, Magnussen got to do double the laps now to get that data in.
He will indeed. He will indeed. So
Yeah.
do you think we've got a question coming here? Do you think teams purposely come out late to save their engine mileage and use less engine life? So
Um.
personally, I don't think that. I think teams come out generally late in practice because the track when we start a session is what's called green. It's not really rubbered in. It hasn't got a lot of grip, and the temperatures aren't what they're going to be when it gets to qualifying. So you want to leave it as late as possible, so the track is rubbered in, and you get a more representative data gathering session, which is why people tend to come out later in the session rather than straight out of the gates. Unless, of course, the team is behind on mileage for missing time in practice 1 or practice 2, then they're going to come out instantly. But they tend to save it by about 15 or so minutes just to get the track rubbered in a little bit from the few cars that do go out relatively early. So, no, I don't think it's to save engine mileage or engine life by deciding to come out a bit later.
Yes, that is definitely a correlation, as you will save engine mileage if you don't go out too soon, but that is not the primary reason why
Hmm.
teams are doing it. As yeah, you've explained it fairly good with just waiting for some track evolution to happen, for some temperatures to adjust, and maybe also just having a cheeky little look at what the other teams are doing and how they are running and how tires behave
Hmm.
on
Yeah,
other cars
trying
before.
to gather more data from the other teams as
Exactly.
well.
And Hamilton was going very slow. Oh no, he was. Seems everything's all right. He just let Russell go ahead there.
Currently, I am looking at some adverts provided by Sky, as if I don't pay them enough
Oh,
money already for my Now TV subscription, I've got to sit through a bunch of adverts for the time being.
yeah.
So
Well,
I should go through. I'll read
Hamilton
some of these
is.
questions.
Yeah, sure. I will just tell you what happens. Is Hamilton is going very slow through that chicane on a soft tire, so he is going to run out on a qualifying simulation, which will show us what they can actually do. As we are on board and we can hear the car bounce again. We can see Hamilton's helmet just bouncing all over the place again, so they are back into that porpoising area.
That's interesting. It would be good to get a comparison to see how low they're running the car, because yesterday they were running the car as low as they ever have this season and it wasn't
Yes.
bouncing. But inherently, as you lower the car closer and closer, the bouncing risk increases. So to extract more performance from the car with the ground effects era that we're now in, you want to be running it as low as possible. So they may have just lowered it a step too far in this practice 3 session from what it was yesterday. So if they
Yeah,
just revert
probably.
it back a little bit and just raise the ride height ever so slightly, then
Yes.
potentially they might unlock a bit more pace potential. So they may have
Yeah,
gone a
but
bit too
also
far.
Hamilton is pushing it hard, but has already lost 1 second
Ooh,
at the end of sector 2. So there is still a third sector to come, which it doesn't look like he will improve much, as the car looks very skittish, getting in there with just a bit too much speed or too little grip, either one of those. And well, places it in sixth position with
Sixth
1.2
place.
seconds off the pace,
Interesting.
but ahead of Paris.
Ahead of
Paris
Perez.
just got in right behind him, 200ths of a second slower. So, but yeah, it is only the first run. The track hasn't been properly rubbered in yet, so I don't think this is too much to speculate yet. Just a fun little side happening. But you can really hear the porpoising down the main straight. You can also see it. It doesn't look as bad as it has at the beginning of the season, but it seems like Mercedes still haven't really understood the cause of the issue.
That's interesting. We'll see if they can either get a grip on that later in the session or potentially as we go further through the season, as they are now definitely, with this upgrade package that they've brought, made steps in the right direction to being able to understand it. We're getting a lot of comments as I'm still looking at adverts. We're getting a lot of comments regarding Max Verstappen and whether Max is actually out on track or why Max is in the pits at the moment. So I'll let you
Max
answer that one.
Max is not out on track yet, hasn't set a lap. I have seen some pictures of him before in the garage, as he is looking ready to go, but doesn't seem to be quite in a hurry there. As we also get a lap here of Sainz, who got a purple sector 1, now storming up to that sector 2 benchmark, where he lost a lot of time, and now
Always
is...
a tenth and a half down in sector
Yeah.
2 as Leclerc gets out of the way for Sainz there quite nicely.
Yeah.
Doesn't get in the way of his teammate. But we do have the two Ferraris at the top of the leaderboards at the moment. It is Leclerc followed by Sainz, 2/10 between them, with Russell in P3. We do have a lot of people out on the softs, but these aren't super quick lap times. I'm just going to have to pull up quick the times from yesterday to see if we can get a small little comparison.
Yesterday
just
we
do
had
that
about
now.
118.9.
An 18.9.
Yes, while the lap record at the moment held by Verstappen from 2021 is a 118.149.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems that those new cars don't lack much of pace there. Like compared to their predecessors.
They're certainly slower cars, but I feel like they've got a little bit more potential. Perhaps as we develop this ground effect era, they may potentially get a bit quicker, as we are at the infancy, is the very first year of ground effect. So there's a lot of room for improvement for these ones. And if we're only 7 or 8 tenths behind what we were last year, that's not too bad. It's not too bad. So the fastest lap time yesterday was Leclerc, a 1:19.6. A
Did it go to the
1:19.6.
119.6? All right.
Yep, 1:19.6 was the fastest time from yesterday from Charles Leclerc. So we are a little bit behind that by 6/10 for the time being. But I would expect in the next half an hour or so that will definitely start to tumble down.
Yes,
As
I
we've
have
actually
just
got.
seen a team radio of
Oh,
Lewis Hamilton there, that the DRS hasn't been functioning properly, which might explain the terrible lap time.
oh, that's interesting. So whether it was just not activating from his steering wheel or just not opening at all, that's an interesting one. It's odd that people have DRS failures where it doesn't open. They normally get DRS failures where it's stuck open, as Raikkonen had that a couple of years ago, where the DRS flap
Yeah.
physically gets stuck open and you can't close it again. So it's odd to happen in the reverse, as we've actually got Max Verstappen now heading out on track finally. So whether he just had a couple of gremlins, startup gremlins in the garage or not, because 25 minutes is definitely a long time to wait to go out on track. But we do
Well, it
have
is
Max
actually
Verstappen
quite
out.
quick for the puff of smoke we've had there. I'm actually surprised that he is getting out at all.
So was there actually issues for Max Verstappen's car there?
Oh no, you oh shit, yeah, no, sorry. I kind of misunderstood that, as I have seen Tsunoda and kind of was with AlphaTauri there and thought about Gasly. That you were talking about Gasly going out, not Verstappen.
No,
That is,
not Gasly. No, not Gasly. Max Verstappen is now out on track. So we're
yeah.
soon going to have everybody bar Pierre Gasly having set a lap time. As we've now actually have 4,500 people watching the stream, which is absolutely mega. So if you guys haven't done so already, please hit like on today's stream. It really helps us out here at Racing Statistics. And also, if you haven't done so, do subscribe to the channel as well, as we do these live commentary watch-alongs for every session of the Formula One weekend. So if you could all do that, that would be absolutely mega. And I will do my best to go through a couple of these questions for the time being, whilst we commentate on what is going on for the remaining 34 minutes. Oh, here we go. We do have the first question here. Do you guys think Aston Martin has copied Red Bull? Now that is an interesting topic of conversation. So they obviously have a very similar side pod design that they've come out with now, as well as, interestingly, a very similar floor design as well. They've got cutouts in very similar places, and then the leading edge of the floor towards the temporary, I'll call it, barge board section, because they're not barge boards, but they sort of curl up the leading edge of the floor to form a barge board area. It's all very similar to the Red Bull, but the cars are definitely distinctly different. They have completely different front and rear suspension setups. The rest of the aero devices on the cars are different. It's only really the side pods that are the same, and small sections of the floor. It just depends on where the first design actually came from. So Aston Martin have been able to prove to the FIA that this Red Bull-like design was in their wind tunnel and in development from November of last year. So it now depends on when Red Bull started developing this year, because it couldn't have been a case that Aston Martin developed this side pod design from seeing it on the Red Bull in testing. That is out of the question. So it's happened before Aston Martin have physically seen it. So they haven't just taken a couple of pictures and designed it from the season starting. That hasn't happened. It's something else that has happened before. It just depends where the inspiration came from for Aston Martin to develop a side pod similar to the Red Bull.
Yeah, I don't think that it is like straight up copied or stolen, but I do think that they have chased after very, very similar philosophies. And probably, as far as I'm aware, there has been some exchanging of engineers between the seasons. So maybe that has played some sort of a role, that they both started with the same idea from the get-go and then developed them into different regions, as it wouldn't make sense to copy the Red Bull design for Aston Martin, as Aston Martin has a Mercedes power unit in the back of that car, which just needs different coolings and a whole lot of different airflows and aero parts from above the car, which would upset everything you do underneath the car if there's just, you know, certain things not really adding up. So I think they came from a similar or maybe even identical base idea and then just both developed it, while Red Bull obviously developed them better, seeing their performance throughout the season compared to Aston Martin's things throughout the season. But in the end, I think they have taken heavy inspiration for the updates they brought now to Spain. But I do not think that it is a full-on copy.
I will agree with that. I so completely agree with that. It's definitely not a full copy like they did with the pink Mercedes just a couple of years ago. It just really depends on where this inspiration originated from and how it actually started for Aston Martin. But I think for the time being, we'll leave the Aston Martin conversation there, as it can definitely go on and on and on for quite some time.
Yeah, that for one point, and for the other thing, it's just there's so many variables of things just have no chance of getting any insight at the moment now, except for spewing out personal opinions,
Mhm.
half-baked knowledge, and
Uh-huh.
something we have seen in some sort of YouTube video that has been contradicted by another, but there I have seen a news source saying that thing while another thing said something entirely different. So we will not know, and we probably will just have to wait for 1 or 2 more race weekends to see how this pans out and
Mhm.
what the investigation of the FIA really brings to light.
Yep, the story will unfold in a couple of races'
Yeah, I
time, I'm
mean,
sure.
crazy conspiracy time. What
Oh,
about Red Bull sending a spy into the wind tunnel back in November and actually stealing the design of Aston Martin?
that could
You
be
know,
interesting. Yeah, that
as
could
it
be
stands
interesting.
now, this
However they
is
would have done that,
yeah, but as of
that is a
now, this
mad
is
conspiracy.
yeah, but it is as good of a guess as anything else. It is
This is
highly
true.
unlikely, but we just don't know. And we won't know until there's really information from that investigation of the FIA themselves,
Mhm.
as I don't think any of the teams will be really honest about where they got things from and everything.
Oh, here we go. I'm just going to cut you off as we're starting a hot lap from Lewis Hamilton here as he's fixed the DRS issues with the soft tyres booted onto his Mercedes.
But
So
he
they've
also
fixed the
already
DRS
lost
issues.
half a tenth
Yeah, half a tenth
in
down in
sector one.
sector
Yes,
one. But we'll see what he can do in sector 2 and sector 3 for Lewis Hamilton here. The car is definitely looking a bit more stable than we've seen it briefly. Not too much bouncing going on for Lewis Hamilton as he flicks it left and flicks it right up towards the hill for the fast right-hand corner down towards the end of sector 2 onto the straight. DRS wide open. There's a couple of cars up ahead as he breaks down into turn
half a
number 8,
second
I believe
lost.
that is.
That's
But 7/10, yeah. 7/10 down. That's a
yeah.
significant loss in sector
Is it
2 for Hamilton.
Is it just me, or did they raise the car a little? It looks
Uh,
higher than in
I
the
am.
first run, but it also looks
Mm,
less bouncy. So
it is possible that they've raised it, but he's going to come to the end of the lap as he flicks it left and right through the final chicane and round the last corner. DRS wide open once again, and across the line for Lewis Hamilton. It is
9 tenths
okay.
back.
9/10 down on Leclerc. A 121.1 for Lewis Hamilton puts him P6 on the leaderboard at the moment. So that was definitely a push lap from Lewis Hamilton, but whether it was a fully optimized push lap, I'm not 100% sure. So both Mercedes 7 and 8/10 down respectively for Russell and Hamilton on Charles Leclerc's fastest lap. So we've got Leclerc leading the way from Verstappen, from Sainz, from Perez. Then it is the two Mercedes. So that is
Yeah,
Yeah, quite interesting there from Hamilton. It definitely looked like he was attacking the lap. It didn't look like he was taking it easy. So whether that's all the car has got for the time being, I'm not 100% sure.
I think it is pretty much. I'm not sure if it really shows true pace yet, but I think it's
Hmm.
very close to it. As I just don't think Hamilton's ego is okay with always staying behind Russell, and Russell is not much faster at the moment, but he is still faster, which seems to become kind of a pattern throughout the season that Hamilton is set behind Russell in almost any occasion.
Yeah, we'll have to see what they can come up with for the rest of this season. See if Hamilton can put together a decent lap, as we know he can, as we know he definitely can. But Russell is also known for his good qualifying, shall we say, having that praise of Mr. Saturday from last year in the Williams.
Absolutely. While my stance on that is still that the Mercedes is a difficult car to drive at the moment, and
Yeah,
while
absolutely, absolutely.
while Russell comes straight from Williams, who has always been a difficult car to drive, which he has done for years,
hmm
put that car into places no one would have ever dreamed of a Williams to be in that season. He is absolutely in the zone with cars that are
Oh, Kevin
difficult to work
Magnussen
with.
P5.
Yeah,
Kevin
nice one.
Magnussen P5, not too bad at all. 3.5 tenths on Leclerc. Sorry to cut you off just there. That was a
That
decent
is
lap that sort
absolutely
of flew
fine. That
under the
is a
radar.
very decent lap with yeah, just 3.5 tenths back on the pace. That's looking
Yeah,
good
that's not bad
there.
at all.
Would be nice if we would have Schumacher out on track too, because
Yeah,
I
definitely.
always
See what
I
he
would
can
wonder
do.
what's the difference between Schumacher and Magnussen as in driving abilities. As kind of miss the direct
Oh,
comparison. But
what's that hanging out of Latifi's car there? Did you see that?
yeah,
On
yeah,
the slow
yeah.
motion replay, there's a small little pipe or something hanging out of
It
the
is.
cooling louvers.
Yeah, some tubing. I have
That was
no like it
strange.
could at this moment it could be anything, but with the way
Yeah.
on highly complex and efficient they are built, I don't think that this is anything that has particularly to do with the engine or anything. Maybe it just got forgotten by a mechanic in there, as well, there is high winds going over these engines for some additional air cooling. It might have just been a part that has been left in there and now is getting dragged out there.
hmm Oh, we've just had a question coming in here. What has happened to Pierre Gasly? So Pierre Gasly actually had an issue on startup near the beginning of the session, where they started the car in the garage as usual, and it just sort of broke from there. Lots of smoke
Yep.
pouring out the back of it, and that was the end of his session before it even got going. He then hopped straight out of the car, and that was about it. So that is exactly what's happened to Pierre Gasly. He hasn't set
Yeah,
a lap time as he's never even left the pits. The car broke on startup.
yeah, but also I just want to remind of the great situational comedy, as the text live feed was just getting a nice picture of Gasly's car in the garage as it was firing up, like with a text of "ready for last practice session. I hope you are too," and followed about 30 seconds later by a message with that whole picture of the
The
cloudy
car is now
garage with
smoking.
just well, that was not optimal for us, so I guess we will sit this one out.
Oh, as we've got Leclerc setting the first sub 1 minute 20 lap time there, a 1:19.772. So this is now just a tenth slower than the fastest lap time that we saw yesterday. So we're definitely getting a couple more representative lap times. And it definitely seems like Ferrari might just have the pace here over Red Bull, as everyone set fast lap times on the softs, apart from a couple of drivers down from P13 downwards. And Ferrari have a 7/10 that's 7/10 advantage over Red Bull at the moment,
That
and
is
then
quite
just over a
definitely.
second to Mercedes. So
Yeah,
whether
I
anyone
hope.
can actually close that down or not, because 7/10 is definitely a significant gap. But we've got both Red Bulls in the pits for the time being, so expect them to come out in the next 5 or so minutes
That is quite
just to get
something.
a
But
couple lap times in.
one thing I just want to throw in there is that apart from of course Ferrari and Red Bull fighting it out at the top, we got a Haas followed by a Alfa
Alfa
Romeo
Romeo.
before the Mercedes, which
hmm
I think is kind of bad to see for the Mercedes. But as a Swiss Formula One fan, I gotta support Alfa Romeo, and
Bottas has had a
furthermore,
very good season so far, hasn't he? He's really performing very well in
well,
that
when his
Alpha.
car didn't break down, sure. But yeah,
Oh,
he had some heavy reliability issues. Hamilton
as
seems to be able to get in personal bests on both sectors 1 and 2 as he gets into that last corner. But I don't think that it will be a significant change, as he is still 1.1 seconds off and just moves ahead by 1/10 ahead of his teammate George Russell now, but not really good. And well, Ricardo 3 seconds off the pace with that lap,
so
staying
the
on
two
P13.
McLarens are currently running the mediums at the moment. They've only set their fast
All
lap
right,
on the mediums, so they're definitely a tire difference between the teams around them for the time being. So there's definitely going to be 6-7 tenths between the mediums and the softs overall. So I think McLaren are just
absolutely. Yeah.
running completely different run plans at the moment to make up for some of their lost time that they had. So again, lining up with a couple of questions that have come through here, have McLaren actually set a fast lap? So no, not really. They've been running the medium tyres. I'm sure we can find the stint lengths for you to see if they're actually doing race runs or not. And then again, why has Max Verstappen only done 6 or 7 laps? It's because he only came out with 35 minutes to go. So he spent 25 minutes in the garage. Whether there was a small issue with the car or not, I don't know. But it definitely, he was one of the last cars other than Pierre Gasly, who never started the session, to actually go out onto the track. So that's why Verstappen has done little amounts of laps, as he didn't come out for 25 minutes. And then McLaren, I believe, are on just completely different run plans and have only really run
Yeah.
the mediums for the time being.
Yeah, that seems to be the case here. But I also think Red Bull isn't really going out there to not risk anything, as it seems they just have gathered all the data. It's we have seen some pictures out of the garage from Red Bull every now and then. They do not seem stressed. There is no work on the cars being done. Like the drivers seem rather relaxed. So I don't think they're having any issue. They're just, I don't know, taking it easy, enjoying some ice cream.
Well, they're probably taking it easy because analyzing the race runs yesterday from FP1 and FP2 had Red Bull fastest by about half a second on the mediums compared to everybody else. So Max Verstappen's average lap time on the mediums for his long race runs was a 1:26.1, and then the next person to him was Russell, averaging out his medium stints was a 1:26.6, and then everyone was all slower than that for race
Yeah,
pace.
well,
So Red Bull do have a quick race car, whether it's going to be a quick qualifying car, because in the qualifying simulations, they're 7/10ths down, like they were yesterday and like
yeah.
they are now. So they definitely have a quick car. It's just whether they can use that pace advantage to overtake, because it is also difficult to overtake at this circuit looking back at the history. But that could change now with these new cars potentially. But we do have George Russell currently going quickly. Purple Sector 1 and a personal best Sector 2 up by 200ths on Charles Leclerc. So
Yeah,
let's
now
round
into
this.
turn 12, 13. Now going for the chicane.
Is he going to bounce
Looks,
it like Yuki Tsunoda is? Let's have a look. George Russell goes
he
through it
isn't, but
quite
looks
nicely there.
aggressive.
But he might just catch a little bit of a toe from the car that's up in front of him there. That's one of the Red Bulls, I believe. And he
Places
goes
it on
P2.
second. Nice.
Not bad. So Russell there getting a 1:19.9 for Mercedes, going P2 for George Russell. So that's definitely a bit more of the pace there. That's a bit more of the pace from the Mercedes. That's what we could sort of
Yeah,
expect come
also like
qualifying.
pretty much bang on 1 second faster than Hamilton.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So
Hamilton wasn't able to put together a solid lap, a lap that was that good. He wasn't able to attack it. He definitely looked a bit more tentative than George Russell than George Russell's lap
yeah,
just
but I
then.
don't think that Hamilton is getting back out as we see him in the garage, or at least his car being cooled without any halo mounted to it at the moment.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it, does it? So we'll
So
have to see if he gets out in the next 16 minutes, but that could just be his run or his day finish. But I would imagine he would like to get out with about 10 minutes to go, perhaps 8 minutes to go, as they usually like to get just a couple more laps in right at the dying minutes of the session.
yeah, probably will. Seems like a lot of teams are doing this as we have
We have
only
a
nine.
lot of cars out on track.
It's only 9. It has been way more hectic. The thing is, with only 4.6 kilometers in length, that is a rather short track.
Hmm.
With like in a 1 minute 18, it's almost 10 seconds faster per lap than other tracks. So even with only 8, 9, 10 cars out there, it becomes very crowded very
A
quickly.
traffic paradise, I think we can call that a traffic paradise. As
Yeah.
we've got a fun comment here coming through saying Lewis Hamilton's jewelry must be slowing him down. With all his watches and necklaces and rings that he's wearing, that must be slowing him down a lot.
Yeah,
So
probably.
I'm sure if they're all gold necklaces, they're going to be heavy things. So they are definitely going to weigh him down. As a kilo in Formula One terms, every kilo of weight is
Yeah,
around
but
300ths
if
of a
we're
second.
yeah. But if we're honest there, if I would have all these gold jewelry things on my driver, I could build the car lighter. That might be a
That's very
strategy
true.
behind that. That might be a strategy, you know?
Well, I imagine we're also going to see a couple of weight cuts for the cars as we come on. So they bolted on all of these new upgrade kits that they've got, but then in the coming races they're going to be stripping parts off to start saving weight, as that's where actually the majority of their time saving comes from. So Red Bull's big upgrade kit that they brought here allegedly shaved off 6 to 8 kilos of weight. They obviously haven't specified exactly the weight that was saved, but it's said to be 6 to 8 kilos taken off, which is actually very, very significant. And the weight usually
That
comes off
is quite a
throughout
lot.
the season. It slowly starts coming down and down.
Yeah, but I think that's going to be a very interesting, or generally, I think that is a very interesting concept to have the car average clocking in at a certain amount of weight, and as long as the car is safe, to just give the teams the opportunity to like, yeah, you're currently around, I don't know, 900 kilos, so you could go down to 850 or something, just to generally have all the cars overweight.
Mhm.
And not just, as we've seen in past seasons where you had a very light car with just a brick of tungsten somewhere in there to reach
Just
the
some
weight
ballast.
goals. Yeah,
Oh,
like
as we're on board with Fernando Alonso, a slow lap from Fernando
yeah,
Alonso,
not
only a 1:23. So where is
yeah,
Alonso
that wasn't
currently? So Alonso is actually 13th, and then Ocon only
yeah.
11th. So Alpine not having the best of sessions, actually. I could have expected a bit more, as we've got Guan Yu Zhao actually ahead of them in the Alfa Romeo. So Alfa Romeo actually having a very good session with Bottas P7 and Zhao 10th ahead of the two Alpines. But we've interestingly got Sebastian Vettel in the top 10. He is currently P9, as speaking of Aston Martin, Stroll just goes P12, 1.7 seconds off of the pace, but 6 tenths down on Vettel.
Yeah,
As
there
we've
we
got
see
Verstappen coming back
yeah,
out. Verstappen
Verstappen
is
getting
coming
back
back
out.
out, and Perez. Both of the Red Bulls are coming back out. So expect
Well,
them to potentially close that 7/10 gap that they've got to the top, and either potentially go in front of Carlos Sainz, who's currently P3 at the moment, who is
yeah,
also on an outlap.
I guess they are now trying to get a fast run with a new setup.
Mm-hmm. I
But
would imagine so.
also, I guess we won't see them go back into the pits directly after the run or trying to improve. I think they will make a run now, and if they are capable of improving the lap significantly, they will stay out for race simulation to see if
Mm-hmm.
the race pace will still be there. And if it is not, I guess we will see them run a rather bad qualifying session, basically, as they have had some compared to Ferrari, but will basically bet on jumping the Ferraris on the start and then leading the race from there.
So we've just had an interesting comment come through from Nicholas Walker saying, "Can someone please explain why Hamilton is so far behind Russell at the moment in seemingly the same cars?" So there is actually a second difference between the two drivers. Russell was able to absolutely nail sector one, setting a purple first sector, and then very nearly purple second sector compared to Lewis Hamilton. So I'm not too sure where the significant difference comes from. Hamilton was definitely far behind in sector two, more than he was sector one and sector three. But there is definitely something up. Whether the setups have gone in slightly different directions or not, we're not too sure. But there's definitely a large gulf of a second between the two drivers. So whether Hamilton's
Yeah,
going
I'm
to have to
gonna.
revert to a Russell type setup, I'm not too sure. Or whether it's just Hamilton hasn't actually pieced together a good lap, whereas Russell has pieced together a good lap. We're not
Well,
sure.
I'm gonna stay with my theory there that Russell is just used to drive tricky cars,
Hmm.
while Hamilton has been indulged in the
In
perfect
perfect cars.
machinery
Uh-huh.
for the last 7, 8
8
years.
years, so hasn't had
So
the experience as much as or the recent experience as
exactly,
much as Russell has to extract a good performance from a bad car. He's only really been able to extract a great performance from a great car. So that
exactly.
yeah, that's a good way of thinking about it. That's a very good way of thinking about it. Oh, as we've got another comment saying, yeah, is the AlphaTauri the least reliable car of this season? Obviously, having another engine-related issue. I wouldn't necessarily put it down to AlphaTauri. I would put it down to the Red Bull powertrains themselves having the least reliable power unit, as I'm not 100% sure on the full numbers of their issues throughout the practices and qualifyings and races that they've had, but it is easily more than Renault, Mercedes, and Ferrari, probably combined, to be honest, as they had an awful lot of retirements in the first couple of races. So
Yeah,
it's
but I
definitely more
think
of a
with
Red
only
Bull
being
powertrains issue.
Yeah, but with only being in round 6 of this season, it's kind of hard to tell. Ooh, one
Oh,
700ths of a second behind Leclerc for Verstappen there.
that's true.
Very
What
good
what
lap.
can Sergio Perez do as he comes across the line? He improves, but not by much. So
Really
Perez
not by
stays
much, staying
P6,
down in
but
6th.
Max
Yeah.
Verstappen, yeah, P2, 700ths behind Charles Leclerc. So
Yeah, so now
as
let's see if
Hamilton goes P4. When did that happen?
nice.
Hamilton has gone P4.
Just
So there's
as
now
just as we were gouging at Verstappen getting up there, Hamilton was actually quite on the same lap as Verstappen there, so it happened
Mhm.
pretty much at the same time. But
So
he's
what's that
now,
now? We've got the top 6 covered by half a second. So we've got Leclerc,
yeah,
Verstappen, just less than a tenth between them. Then George Russell P3, a tenth and a half back from Leclerc. Then Hamilton about half a tenth back from Russell, and then we've got Carlos Sainz and Sergio Perez P5 and P6. 3.5 tenths back for Sainz, and then half a second back for Perez.
yeah,
So
and
it's
just let me
close.
put it
It is
out there.
close.
Best of the rest is currently a Haas, which makes me happy.
This is very
Even
true. And
happier
then
that
we've
he is
got
followed by
Valtteri
an Alfa Romeo.
Bottas.
Yeah,
Uh
it
huh.
is like a dream setup currently.
So we've
It
actually
is
got
everybody is kind
people.
of where we know or where we expect them to be, apart from that, where we can really have a shakeup, where it
Mhm,
is the exact kind of shakeup you just love to see, at least in my situation.
mhm. So we've got people in the comments here saying that Hamilton was really fast in sector 1 and sector 3. It appears his main loss is coming in sector number 2, when going up against George Russell, Charles Leclerc, and Max Verstappen, the drivers that are faster than him currently. So Hamilton's able to be really quick in sector 1 and in sector 3, the tight twiddly section going through the chicane, but it's sector 2 where he loses quite a lot of his time. So I'll have to do a little telemetry analysis of this session afterwards to see exactly where all the time is being lost from him.
Yeah, but it looks like just from that superficial glimpse at it, it looks like he is just running a higher downforce setup, basically. Gaining time in the corners, losing them on the straights. Looks like high downforce setup.
And there's just currently lots of talk about Lewis Hamilton at the moment in the chats for the time being. Is how long have we got left with the session? A little over 6 minutes to go, as we got a big snap of oversteer there for Lance Stroll. Big snap of oversteer for Stroll. Oh, you almost lost that. That was good to keep it under control there. Good to
Yeah.
keep it under control from Stroll. But we've also got a lot of comments about McLaren and what is up with McLaren. Why are they P16 and P17? So McLaren have been running the medium tyres. That is what they've set their fastest lap time on so far this season or session. And as I say that, we've got Lando Norris currently out on the softs at the moment. So expect McLaren to potentially move up the leaderboards at the end of this lap. But they also have had to try and claw back some of the time that they've had, with Lando Norris having an issue with his survival cell and damage to the floor from yesterday. So they're just trying to put in some race runs mostly for this session, as he's set a green sector 1 for Lando Norris, a tenth and a half up, as we head down towards, what's this, turn number, I'm hoping for it to pop up on the screen, turn number 6 and 7.
7, 8.
Uh-huh. So what can he do going through sector number 2 for Lando Norris? I'm expecting a quite a
Now
big
it's
improvement
turn
here on the
9.
softs now.
Getting down towards the end of sector 2 now.
Oh,
Into
he's
turn
lost
10.
time. He's lost time. Lando Norris 2.5 tenths down on his best.
Isn't that off the pace?
Oh, yes, sorry. No, that's my bad. Yeah, he's off the pace of Leclerc. 2.5 tenths down off of
Yeah, but that
Leclerc.
means he's still faster in Sainz.
And
Might
through
even
the
be
chicane
faster
for
in
Lando
Hamilton there.
Norris. What can he do as he rounds out the final corner, turn 16 for Lando Norris, and across the line from P17 to P7. P17
Lost
to
a lot of
P7 for
time
McLaren,
there. Yeah.
but an awful lot of time loss in sector 3 for the McLaren there. But that's a lot more representative. That is a lot more representative for what McLarens actually have. So expect Daniel Ricciardo to put in something similar, as he too is also on an outlap at the moment. So Lando Norris moved up to P7, 6.5 tenths down from Charles Leclerc as we've got 5 minutes left. What has happened with Gasly? We've got another one of these comments. Gasly actually had an issue on his engine startup at the very beginning of the session in the garage, where his engine had a fairly significant failure, and it was lots of smoke pluming out of the back of his car, so he wasn't even able to leave the garage. Engine failed on startup.
Yeah, hate to see it.
You really do. You really do. Another issue for the Red Bull powertrains
Hamilton
cars.
seems another fast lap, but was
We
not
are.
able to improve on his own Sector 1 time.
No, but what can he do heading down to sector number 2? Because he's on another. Is this a brand new set of soft tyres? I'm not too sure as the McLaren gets out of the way, but it looks like he's backed off. Yeah, Hamilton's backed off massively. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
He's
3
aborted that
seconds
one.
off. That is.
He's aborted that one. He'll do another maybe half lap recharge, and then he's got the time to do a half lap recharge and then go again at the end of this lap. But he's now going to have the McLaren, who's actually wanting to set up
Yeah, no,
lap time,
he
getting in the way.
blocks off the McLaren. Unfortunate.
So whether he's going to go for another push lap right now, or whether he's going to... No, he's coming into the pits. Hamilton coming back into the pits. But, I mean, he can be happy with that, though. I mean, he's behind Russell, but it's only by half a tenth. It's not by a second that it used to be. So he can at least be happy with that. But you'd want to be ahead of your teammate. You always do. You always want to be ahead of your teammate.
It's the only one person on the grid you really have to beat.
Mm-hmm. But again, this is definitely confidence boosting for Mercedes because they're only a tenth and a half down off of the pace. Whereas all season they've been over half a second off of the pace.
Not in practice sessions though. Practice sessions they have always looked very strong.
They have looked strong in practices.
You were sitting there like, all right, Mercedes, they got it.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're out of their hole. They found a grip on that car. They solved the issue, and then qualifying came along, and you were actually nervous for them to drop out in Q1.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll see what happens as qualifying starts in a little over 2 hours, I believe. 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock local time, that would be, I guess.
Yeah, 2 hours, 2 minutes from now.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Let's have a look at some of these comments that we've got. Let's see if there's any interesting ones. As I don't think we've got too much going on. So we've got Fernando Alonso going around. Is he going to improve from P16? Yes, up to P12. As Daniel Ricciardo goes P11.
Ricciardo pushes him right back down.
But there's again a bit of a difference between Ricciardo and Norris, though. There's a couple of tenths between them. I think there's about 5 or 6 tenths between the two drivers. So it's better from Ricciardo, but certainly not what you would expect. You'd like to see him a little bit closer to Lando Norris.
Yeah.
So we've just got lots of people saying that Russell is really proving how good he actually is when he's given a bad car to work with, which is what you've been saying an awful lot this session so far.
Yeah.
Is that he's just able to extract and know how to extract a really good performance from a underperforming car compared to Lewis Hamilton, and lots of people seem to be agreeing with that in the comments here.
Yeah, exactly. He's just coming from a completely different background. So while I think Hamilton really has this strategic long-term thinking with relying on the car doing certain things in certain parts of a stint, Russell is just better with kind of just winging it lap by lap and see what happens. And I think this is really what makes the difference between them as teammates at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Okie doke. Right, so with a minute left to go and probably not a lot of changes going to happen within this final minute, I'm going to throw you the question, who is going to get pole position? And I'm going to sort of couple the questions together. Are we going to have any surprise Q1 or 2 exits? So who's going to get pole position? And then who do you think is going to be a surprise Q1 or 2 exit? As it's looking spicy for pole position. If it stays like this, with the top 6 being covered by half a second, it could be any one of them. But what do you think?
I think a surprise Q2 exit will be Perez.
Oh, you think Perez could be out in Q2? Okay. I can support that. I think I can get behind that. He hasn't had the best of weekends so far, the best of weekend setups.
Yeah, and he also has kind of a record with this track.
This is true. This is true.
I think he will be out in Q2.
Okie doke. And then who do you think is going to get pole position? So with Perez being knocked out in Q2, as the checkered flag is waved and practice 3 comes to an end, who do you think will get pole position?
I think it's gonna be a pole. It is always very hard to tell, as it's basically a 50-50 guess with Verstappen or Leclerc at the moment.
Exactly.
So I will adapt the question, throw a curveball, and say it is Leclerc or Verstappen on pole, but it's not a front row lockout between them. There's going to be someone else.
So, someone else is going to get onto the front row that's not
exactly.
Okay.
Maybe Russell.
That could be interesting.
Let's throw that curveball in there. Let's just get a insane prediction out of that and say front row is going to be Russell on second, and first is going to be Leclerc or
Verstappen. Okay, yeah,
but
I
they will
can
not
support
share
that.
the front row.
I can support that. Yeah, I will agree with that there. And I think that is going to bring an end to at least my portion of commentary for this. I'm not sure if you want to stay on a little bit longer or not, but that is the end of practice number 3. If you want to just give a little rundown of the order, as I've lost all of my timing screens, I no longer have them displayed at the moment. So if you just want to give a quick rundown of the order, and then that'll be us done.
I have them right here. So we end free practice 1 with Leclerc, Verstappen, and Russell in the top 3, followed by Hamilton, Sainz, and Perez, which is no surprise with having Ferrari, Red Bull, and Mercedes getting the top 6. Followed then on P7 by Norris, followed by Magnussen and Bottas, which is really nice to see a Haas back up there. And the top 10 is getting rounded up by Ocon, with 1.1 seconds behind the leaders. Then we got in P11, we have Ricciardo, followed by Vettel and Alonso, which basically brings us all the Alpines just barely scraping the top 10, followed by Guan Yu Zhou, Tsunoda, Stroll, Albon, Latifi, Schumacher, and then, of course, Gasly in last position as he failed to even leave the garage. I guess that will round out this session. I wish you all a pleasant next 2 hours until qualifying starts. And if possible, do me a favor, go out there, and if somehow possible, just do some small random act of kindness for any stranger you just see on the street and help making this world at least a tiny bit of a better place.